Hi everyone, welcome to my live today. I'm having a few tech dramas, which is why I'm on my laptop and don't usually have my same setup, but I'm here and I'm delighted to be here with the amazing Joe Webb. We're going to be talking all about workplace culture. Joe is an amazing workplace culture expert with over 25 years experience, and I can't wait to dig in and ask her some questions. I'm personally curious how many small business owners would still be in employment if there had been a better workplace culture at their companies. And yeah, I imagine that would be quite a high percentage. So before I bring up Joe, I just want to quickly introduce myself. So I am Jen Corcoran. I'm a LinkedIn consultant, and I specialize in helping brave, bold, and badass introverted, empathic, and highly sensitive female entrepreneurs, in particular coaches, consultants, and creatives. And I love helping you to feel in flow on LinkedIn, get your visibility, toot your horn in a way that feels aligned and that doesn't feel icky, because a lot of the online marketing out there does not work for us. So I'm delighted to have Joe as a guest today. And as I said, I've had a few tech dramas, so bear with me. I'm usually a lot more organized. So I'm going to read a little bit of Joe's intro before I get her up on the stage, because she is amazing and I don't want to do her a disservice by not fully telling you about how fantastic she is. As I said, she's got over 25 years experience working with global high growth SMEs to create thriving, values aligned workplace cultures. She partners up with CEOs, leadership teams, and HR teams to ensure their business is future proofed for long term sustainable success. The impact of Joe's work goes significantly beyond improving employee engagement and performance. It's seen her clients grow fast and expand into new global locations, attract and retain more diverse talent while reducing the cost of hiring, engage new clients and customers, and ultimately build deeply connected, high-performing teams, which is what we're going to be chatting about today, and develop the resilience to navigate major changes. And let's face it, there's been a lot of changes in the workplace over the last few years with the pandemic. So as a qualified performance coach and an insights discovery practitioner, Joe takes the science and the research and makes it applicable to her client's business. While she's not at work, this is a little bit about Joe as a human being, because we're all human beings and people by people. Joe is usually found supporting various sports teams. She loves doing a bit of yoga and taking her lively spaniel Cody for long walks. Okay, so that is the amazing Joe. I'm going to bring her up and we're going to dig deep. And do let us know if you are here today. If you are watching us, it's always good to know there's other people in the room. So let us know if you're watching us live or on replay. Don't be shy. If you have any comments or questions as I'm chatting to Joe, this is your opportunity to ask them. So please, don't be shy and engage. We don't bite. Okay. So I'm going to bring up the wonderful Joe now. Hello, Joe. Welcome.
Hello. Hi.
Thank you so much for your patience in bearing with me with the tech. Joe has been a trooper.
And thank you for that lovely intro.
Oh, you deserve it. So I'm going to dive in with the questions because I know we only have roughly half an hour today. So my first question is, what led you to start your company, Culture Co?
Well, I've always been interested in human behaviour, which is what culture's about. It's about people and it's about behaviour. And I studied psychology and sociology of sport at university, and I guess then my real interest in workplace culture came when I got my first job, or one of my first jobs, in recruitment. And I got really interested in, why do some people become really successful in some organizations and yet other people aren't so successful? And what is it that makes, somebody that you look at on paper and they look like they've got great, experience, they've got great skill set, but actually they go into a company and they don't perform very well. And I started to think, okay, that's kind of about the environment that's created for those people. And then I moved into a wider HR generalist role, and I started to realize that culture is just so important, and it impacted business performance so massively. And I started to think about, well, what is it? What's going on here? And I realized that all of the successes, and I guess some of the failures as well of all the companies I'd worked at, you could kind of align that back and trot that back to culture and workplace culture. So got really interested in what is it then that creates a great culture? How do we create an environment where everyone can succeed? And what do people want from work and from a workplace culture? So I decided to focus on that and do what I love and set up Culture Co.
Amazing. And I know they say that people leave bosses more so than companies, but it's usually the bosses that kind of bring that culture throughout the company and through teams. So yeah, I can totally relate to everything you're saying, and I think it's amazing. So my next question for you is, what are some of the common challenges that CEOs and HR leaders are facing that your work helps to address?
So I guess at the heart of it, we're really talking about how do we grow sustainably. So often clients will come to me and they'll say, we've been able to have short-term growth, but actually we haven't been able to sustain that over the long term. And why is that? What's going on? And I guess digging into that a little bit further, there's how do we attract and retain staff, and sometimes also how do we reduce the cost of that, because it's a very costly business attracting and retaining staff. Pete, as you've said, I think you kind of alluded to this in your kind of intro. People aren't very happy at work. That's the problem. We've got an awful statistic out there at the moment that 90% of employees are disengaged from work. They're not.
Wow.
They're not always trusting their leadership. They're not trusting the decisions that are being made. They're not. They don't feel like they're being communicated to enough. They're not seeing enough personal growth in their roles. They want to have meaningful work and see themselves grow and progress in their careers, and they're not always getting that. And I think that idea of meaningful work is really, really important for people.
Yeah.
And quite often the only measure of success that they're getting to see is financial success. So it's being thrown at them, but what else actually, they're asking what else is important around here? Is it just the financials, or what else, can we measure? How else can we measure success? I think the other thing you've already said as well, which is great, but around people leadership, people management, you're right. The single biggest reason that people leave companies is their direct boss, and we've often got the wrong people in that role.
Yeah.
We've got people will often get put into a leadership or a management role because they are technically good at what they do, but that doesn't mean they're automatically going to be very, very good in a management role. And they might not have the mindset, they might not even want to do it, let alone having the mindset, the skills, the capability. And then we're not also training them. So I think 80% or more than 80% of people get put into a management role and they haven't had any training. So they don't know what, they're overwhelmed. They don't know how to handle it. And they end up often, what will happen is that they end up controlling things a little bit too much. So too much micromanagement. They don't know, especially in this kind of hybrid world, they can't always see their team members. So they're not sure how to kind of manage their performance if they can't see them. So they end up controlling things. And actually what their teams want is way more flexibility, way more autonomy. And they want to kind of, to do things in their own way. So I think poor people management leadership is a massive thing that clients will come to me with. The other thing is clients saying, we know we've got great individual talent. We know we've got great people, but we're not collectively working together very well. We're not collaborating. We're not moving towards the same goal. We're not connecting with each other. We're operating often with kind of competing priorities. So how do we bring those teams together? So those are some of the things that people will come to me with.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I could completely relate. I know one of my previous roles, one of my bosses had been a team member for several years, and he was, really good at his job and really great friends with everyone in the team. And then when he became the boss, I think he was the opposite of micromanagement. It was kind of like, you're all my friends and I'm going to kind of let you get on with things, but I'm not even going to properly see what your skills are. So it
Yeah.
was kind of the opposite of micromanagement. That was like hard when you're kind of thinking, you don't actually know what my job is. You have a perception of what you think my job is because I've been in the team with you for several years. I don't actually know. So totally get what you're saying. I don't think he had much management training. Like as an individual, he was great. He was great as his job, but as a manager, in my opinion, shocking. And that's why I left. So I love what you say, and I love also what you're saying about the collective team. You know, figuring out everybody's skill sets. And imagine you do that with your insights. As an insights practitioner, kind of seeing what are everybody's skills and putting it together, because I know one of my other bosses tried to pigeonhole me in certain roles, but it was like, this is not my skill set. Why are you giving it to me? And then giving the things that I'm great at to somebody else who was not great at that at all. So yeah, I totally relate to everything you're saying. Yeah, your work is so needed. So my next question for you is, how do you typically approach addressing these types of challenges?
So a great place to start is with a culture health check. I call it a culture health check. So it's a tool that I've developed to measure how well companies are performing against a framework of what a great kind of thriving culture looks like. So it's more than just surveys. Often companies are already doing kind of employee surveys and engagement surveys, but the culture health check digs quite a lot deeper than that, and it's through one-to-one interviews and focus groups, I'll get under the skin essentially of what's going on in the culture. And so lots of talking to people, which and it's interesting because often sometimes when you've got online surveys and people are typically having to use a rating scale, what do you think from 1 to 10? Do you agree with this statement? And people will be clicking a certain number to say whether they agree or don't agree. What I often find when I do the culture health check is when you dig into that a little bit further and actually speak to people in focus groups and one-to-one, you find out something slightly different from what actually came out in the online survey. And so sometimes we're not getting the full answer, I think, when we're just doing surveys. So the health check is about digging deep and getting really under the skin of what's going on in the culture. And essentially I would then create a report that says, here's where you're doing really well and keep doing more of it. Here's some areas to improve, and here's crucially some priorities on what I think you need to address in order to move towards a thriving culture, as per a framework that I've developed as well, which is all part of the culture health check. So that's one of the things which is a great place to start, because it gives us an immediate, this is what's working and this is what we need to work on. The other sorts of ways that I will work with clients, so I will often help them to create what I call cultural foundations, so purpose and values, or sometimes it's about refining those purpose and values, and most importantly helping them to think about, well, how do we make this live and breathe across the whole organization? Because we've all gone into companies and seen value statements on the wall, but then the actual feeling when we go into the office, or it doesn't quite feel like that, and it doesn't feel authentic. So the work that I do is really about, well, how do we live and breathe this stuff, so we don't even need it written on the wall. We know exactly, people can feel it when they walk into the building, essentially. So cultural foundations, that's another kind of piece that I will do. And then I work with people leaders of any level, so anyone with responsibility for managing others or leading others, to help them to develop, I guess, that what we've already been talking about, but that the right mindset, the right skill set, and the right approach for leading others, essentially. And the final piece that I will do is around connecting those teams together. So working with teams to make sure that they're really deeply connected, they're collaborating really, really well together to achieve, common goals, essentially. In a nutshell,
Brilliant.
that's what we'll do.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And I was thinking that I knew the values of my company when I went for the interview, but then I kind of forgot about it. And I think the fact that you just really try and instill it in everyone and it becomes just part of the culture is amazing, because I couldn't even tell you the values of some of the companies I worked with, because it's just like something you just learned just to get you the job, and then you never really heard anything about them again. So I love that you're helping these companies to go deep on their foundations. And I'd personally love to know, when you're helping individuals, and I know I'm kind of going slightly off with the insights, how do you evaluate like individuals and then figure out how the strengths match together in the team?
Yeah, it's not so much about evaluating individuals. I think what Insights does is it's a really good foundation for building self-awareness and also awareness of others. And so it opens up a conversation and allows you to talk with a neutral language about where people's strengths are, and how, and in a team, how you can address kind of some challenges in a kind of neutral way. So it's not necessarily, I don't use it, I think, which is what you were alluding to, which is around choosing people to fit into teams and say, well, we need that looks like that. And that's sometimes how I think insights can actually be used not in the right way. What we want to really stay away from is labeling people, and but where it's really, really powerful and really useful is in building our awareness and opening up conversations and ways to talk about how do we collaborate better and communicate better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. So my next question for you is, what are some key indicators or characteristics that distinguish deeply connected, high-performing teams?
So I would say it starts with a clarity of why the team exists. And I know that might sound a bit silly, but it's amazing how many teams don't know why they're a team, or don't really know what their kind of collective purpose is. So I would they would know what they're there to do. They'd know what their collective purpose, their reason for being is as a team, and they'd know individually, they'd have real clarity in roles within that team. So they'd be really clear on where the strengths are, and who's playing what role within the team, as well as that kind of collective purpose. I think on a more kind of, what would you see going on, you'd see loads of communication, really positive communication, lots of healthy debate, and but then they'd be able to come to a decision. So whilst there's lots of healthy debate and there's different opinions and different perspectives being put in, there's a mechanism to make decisions together, and that happens, and then everyone gets behind that decision, whether their opinion originally was part of that. I think, again, with the whole communication piece, kind of leading that on one step further, feedback, I think you'd see them giving loads of positive feedback to each other, and praising each other when things have gone well. But I think you'd also see them being able to give challenging feedback, because there would be a level of trust there that the feedback is being given not to kind of cut people's legs off, but actually to make for the collective good, to make the team better. So I think that's and you'd see some really super efficient meetings, which I think we're all aware sometimes we go to lots and lots of meetings and they're not always super efficient, but actually you'd see really efficient meetings with clear agendas and clear outcomes, and everyone knows what they're doing when they leave. So yeah, those would be some of the things I'd say.
Sorry to be slightly distracted again. My tech is going, and my Mac now is saying that it's about to shut down. So I'm just plugging you in. I'm still
plug me in. Brilliant. You're having quite a day of it, I think, with tech.
You can see this is live. Hopefully this is back. Sorry, folks. I started this with like 70% battery, and suddenly it's gone down to 2%. And we were supposed to be on my computer, and my computer's had a wobble, so it is one of those days. Oof, I think it's plugged in now. Yeah, we're okay. Sorry, Joe. Thank you for bearing.
I totally understand. Technology is a nightmare sometimes. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I think workplace culture is probably easier to manage than tech. So on your last question, so how can leaders cultivate these qualities of just having that deeply connected, high performing team?
Yeah, so I think coaching, investing in coaching and leadership development is really helpful. We've talked a little bit around insights discovery as a tool for aiding this stuff, and I think it is a great starting point to add into the mix, and to give, I think, giving space and time to discussing, all of these things that we've been talking about. Teams and leaders are very, very busy and got their day-to-day jobs, and they, focused on running towards, what they need to deliver. But the only way that the teams will develop and become better performing together, and leaders become better leaders of teams, etc., is with time spent on it. So spending time, self-reflecting, getting into coaching, both in individuals, and also as part of a team coaching, working together, spending time reviewing their performance collectively together, and saying, okay, what are we doing well, and just taking stock, essentially taking time to think, what are we doing well, what areas could we improve, and what's our learnings to take forward, and then implementing it. If you just keep doing the day-to-day and don't think about it, nothing changes. So I think stop and allow some time for learning, essentially.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think your culture audit is the perfect start for anyone listening today who wants to just get that workplace culture and those high performing teams. Is a great opportunity. So if you are listening today and you're liking what Joe is saying, and you need to do this in your company, don't be shy, reach out, send her a connection request, or send her an email. I've stuck her email up on the screen. So definitely do reach out and connect with her. She is amazing. Apologies if there's any feedback as well. Like I said, we're having tech issues today. It is one of those days. So thank you for your patience, and hopefully this is all audible. Thank you, Joe, for all your patience as well. So it looks like we're very quiet here today. I imagine a lot of people are on and you're listening, and you're maybe a bit shy to comment. I know it's very different when I do a live episode, and I know as employees you do not want to publicly share, which is why I think do reach out and connect with Jo, and she can have a chat with you. And just before we wrap up today, I know you mentioned like some really interesting stats at the start, which were quite depressing, really. I know you're personally working on a little white paper with stats. Can you tell us what that's going to be about? I think that's going to be a great resource for any HR leaders listening today, or any leaders for the company. I know it's you mentioned it to me that you're working on a few pages of a report.
Yeah, it's called Cracking the Retention Code. And yeah, I've written a white paper which I would love to share with anyone that's listening and that's interested. That just looks into some of those statistics that you talk about, that are depressing, but hopefully we can do something about them. And I'm, in the white paper, I look at, well, what are the solutions to some of these things? So there's about 4 or 5 sections looking into kind of trust, leadership, and other areas that HR people, CEOs, leadership teams might want to focus on, in order to create, a more healthy workplace culture. So yeah, I'd love to share it with anyone that would be interested to see it.
Brilliant. And we can DM the people who signed up for this event as well, and I can share Joe's email if I get there first, and we can share details for that report, because I think that will be really useful for anyone listening here today. So yeah, we're kind of almost at the time. You've been quite a quiet crowd, but I hope you've enjoyed what we're saying. I think I only wish I had worked in companies who had implemented this kind of expertise. I think it would make such a difference for retention and a more happier, engaged workforce, feeling part of a unified team, a unified culture, and having those brand values and solid foundations. I think it's just vital in today's culture. When you were chatting earlier on about, you mentioned about people going for the financial reward in their jobs, and I know as a Gen X, I think that was heavily pushed on me from like parents and peers, and you got a job and the salary was enough. It was a permanent job, you're happier in that job, and you've got a good remuneration. Whereas I know future, millennials, Gen X, way different and better in the sense that they are more purpose driven and they really want to work and feel like their work is important, that they're not just a cog in the wheel or a little ant. And they want to feel part of something bigger and feel like they're doing good in the world. So I love that this conversation even exists, because it certainly wouldn't have existed like 20 years ago. So I just wondered, before we wrap up tonight, do you have any final words of like wisdom, Joe, or do you want to like call out certain people to come and have a chat with you?
Final words of wisdom. I mean, I guess I would just say, I'd love to chat with people. I think, everyone's companies, are unique. So whilst there's some common challenges and things, things that as we've talked about today, I think everybody has a unique situation. I'd love to talk to anyone. I think as a final word of wisdom, I would say, start working on your culture today, like before problems arise. That's so much easier. Once there are problems, then it's a lot harder and a lot more costly and takes a lot more time to sort out. So start working on it today. Like there's no better time than today. But yeah, I'd just chat with people.
Great advice. The best time is always now. Great advice. So thank you so much, Joe. You've been an amazing guest. I know you've got so much expertise and wisdom, and it's been a pleasure chatting to you. And like I said, people need this. So any HR leaders listening, you need to chat to Joe if you're having any struggles, or if you want to prevent any struggles. Like Joe said, the time is now, and this is so needed. Just employee retention, just having the best workforce and having those high performing teams. So thanks a million, and do reach out. I'm going to just put Joe's email just up on the screen again. I'm sorry, I'm going to take off my ticker. Bit of overload. Do reach out and connect with Joe and send her an email if that's your preferred. And yeah, we just want to wish you a lovely afternoon. Thank you for bearing with us with the tech, more me. The joys of tech, but at least we got there, and hopefully it was audible. Any problems or anything, let me know. This video will go on my YouTube. I can share the link after if anyone wants it. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Joe. You were amazing.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening. Have a great afternoon. Bye.
Bye. Bye.